Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else I gotta fill out?
No, that's it. Just create it.
So how am I supposed to be seeing all the projects on the left side?
Yeah.
So that means what happened there is okay. Look at what I did. That just means that your workspace is it's like a separate folder. So for instance, let me show you what I did. Um, you could just create a new workspace, right? Where if you want this whole thing to be empty, just go to. You don't have to do it now, but let's say you have Eclipse up and you had like 15 different projects right here. What you could easily do is go to File, go to Switch Workspace, go to Other, and like basically it just works as exactly how you'd think it would work. Like you could just create a new workspace and you could call it whatever you want. So in this case, maybe I want to under this directory I could put, I don't know, random workspace, right? Like I could put that here and I could launch it, and you see Eclipse automatically closes. And let's see what happens when thing let it load for a second.
But it could be in the same workspace, right?
Just don't make it branched in the same workspace. Like if you have Eclipse workspace, right? Don't put something right underneath it. And just put one thing before it. So you see in here, you don't see anything. It's a completely new workspace.
So how do you switch back to the old workspace?
Right. So you hit File, and if you go to Switch Workspace, you'll see all the recent ones you created, right? And as long as you remember where you put it, you could just go right to it, right? So let me pull up that folder. So you see my Eclipse workspace, you see the random workspace I created. So it's basically just another folder structure. So let me open up Appium workspace, which is where I put all the... What the hell? Hang on.
POM XML?
Say again?
Do I open the POM XML?
Yeah, so you see that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is gonna be your dependency. I'm gonna copy paste it into the Teams chat. It's only one dependency, nothing else. Well, let me put it here first. Okay, so this is what you put in, and then you build it, and I'll post that in Teams. So copy paste that over and let it build.
Put that in the POM XML, right?
Yeah. Just make sure to put your hierarchical dependencies with plural tag first.
Build.
Everyone did that. You guys are good.
Hold on.
Wait, what did you say about dependencies?
Yeah, so to put in the dependency tag, have the dependencies around it. because you could put multiple dependencies, and you need to specify that.
See, these are things that we have no idea about. Like, I don't know what this means.
What do you mean?
You're telling me to put dependencies. Like,
these are like
how's I supposed to know that?
These are small details. I mentioned them before, but it could have you could have easily missed it.
Yeah, I don't think I think we should dig deeper into this.
This is not. No, I don't dig deeper into it because there's not much to it, right? It's just like this is how it was before. Like when you first opened the POM file, right? It was just this, and the only major thing for the POM file you have to know is added dependencies, meaning libraries that you don't have just yet that you want to put in your M2 folder, right? So your M2 folder is right here. And basically, what Maven does, it puts all these libraries in the background, right? And just so you don't have to do it yourself manually, that's what this POM file is for, right? And so this is what, like in a regular project, you just pull this up, and you put the dependencies tag right away. And after that, if you ever go to like,
they put your dependency inside in between.
Say again.
They put your dependencies.
Oh yeah, no. This is just to show you, right? So basically, let's say you wanted to put some kind of dependency in, right? So you go to your Maven repository, and they have a whole website for that, right? And based on what you want, like this isn't even stuff we use. Like let's say you wanted this library for whatever reason, you click that, click this, and they have it right here for you, right? So you just copy this, and you just click it once, and they'll just copy it for you, and then you paste, and you're good, right? But you don't need this.
In between the two dependencies you made.
Right. Right.
When we save it, it's done?
Yeah.
Build it.
When you save it, it just builds by itself. All right. So you guys are good with that, right?
It says on descriptions, it says warnings, 2 items.
That's fine. Let me see it first, though. Usually warnings are nothing to worry about.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine. Don't worry about that. You always get warnings.
The compiler compliance with okay.
Yeah, you're good. Don't worry.
All right, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create, as we regularly did, right? I'm going to create an execute class. And today the only thing we're going to go over is just over the subtle differences between Appium and Selenium, of which there are none, not really enough to make a big deal out of it. Like you could go over it in one lesson. There's always going to be a few things here and there that's going to be kind of different, but for the most part you'll see it's pretty much the same. So I'll start with my main method. And basically what you'll do for homework is first I'm going to show over how to actually iterate over, well, let me pull up Appium first. So I don't have my emulator out yet, so let me boot that up. Right. So the one major difference is, and what I'll do is instead of putting everything in the main method, I'll put this private static void landing page flow. And the reason I'm calling it that is just because of what this is, the app. So anytime you boot the app, it's gonna start from the it's gonna assume you're a first-time user. It's not gonna save the state at all. So imagine having just downloaded it, and this is gonna be obviously the first thing you see. And that's just what the driver assumes, right? And you can click through it and everything, and let me show you how it works. So obviously you guys didn't go through it just yet, so this is what we're gonna do today, and afterwards for the homework you'll see what your assignment is. So you click through it, they introduce you, hit next, get started, and obviously we don't have an account, so we'll say continue as guest.
Wait, I I have a question.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
When did we link ship.com to our device? Did we do that?
APK.
We
The
downloaded it
APK file.
yesterday.
Yeah,
APK?
yeah.
Yeah.
This is
That's
not
The
this
three
is
things he told us to
this is
download.
not a website. This is an app.
okay.
Yeah, look. If I hit home, it's right there, like an actual app. Yeah,
Okay. I didn't know what that was.
yeah. So what we're gonna do today is just we're gonna run through a basic landing page flow, hence landing page flow. Where is it? So you hit this, you get current location. You hit this, it'll just generate the location for you. You hit this, you hit save.
Do I have to use that like naming convention, the landing page
No,
underscore
no,
flow?
no,
Is that
no.
like something?
Not at all, not at all, not at all. I'm just doing it. I'm just doing it to do it, because for instance, if I wanted to specify another type of flow, I could just replace this, right, and kept that flow convention. But this is just for tutorial sake, nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah. And basically, you just click that first store, and you land on the summary page, and you click out. And then at this point, what I'm going to have you do for homework, obviously, looking into the, forward. So, this is going to be, something new for you to explore. So all I'm going to expect from you is just to, land on this page. Since we're going to land on the page, that part is going to be done for you. It's going to be very, very basic, and I don't want you to do it the basic way eventually. But what you'll do is you're going to just add some items to the cart.
So are we going to be implementing Cucumber in this too?
Yeah, I expect you to, and it's good practice. I know you're gonna do it over again, but that's fine because that's the only way to really
What, like adding Cucumber
yeah, you can
dependencies and all that?
start with testng, and then like
Yeah.
if you wrap it up with testng, continue on with Cucumber. And I know Ish, you were asking me how to do those scenario outlines with more data sets. I was having trouble setting this up myself today, so that's why I didn't get to that. But I'll show you how to do that afterwards.
I don't remember how to like set up the environment
No,
for
that
testing.
yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
why
that'll like
that's why this is a good
practice.
Yeah, this is why this is good practice. Because remember, you're starting for bare bones, and it's always good to do that. So you really cement it in your head. Even if it's just memorization at first, that's fine. Eventually, it should feel like second nature. So in the homework, you're just gonna add a few of these items. I'll probably just have you add like 1, 2, maybe 2. I don't want you to just swipe around, and just click this, and as long as you can hit the checkout button, you're good. That would be the test case. It doesn't seem too involved, but it'll most likely be a lot more involved than you think. All right, so let me reset this. So the main difference really is, in the beginning with your Chrome drivers, you had to set the environment up. So there's something like that, but Appium, what it does is, if I pull up this terminal, you see this terminology server a lot, right? And there's a reason for it. Anytime you open Appium up, think of this as how you think of as Google Chrome, right? In that you need this, and right now it's stored locally in your computer. But the point of it being that whole server architecture is you could place it anywhere in like a remote server, right? And if it's in a remote server, you could launch, technically, if that person has like access to real devices, right? He'd connect like thing like Android devices, iPhone devices, stuff you might not have, right? He would just connect it to a server, right? And then you, as the client, you with your scripts, you could send your scripts over, and you could install your app in their device. Let's say that person who's hosting the Appium server, right? Let's say he has an iPhone, like the latest one, like a $1,200 iPhone, right? Obviously, with so many people in the team relying on test devices, their company might not be able to afford it, but that's fine. So let me even show you exactly what, the app we use, saucedemo.com, that was made by Sauce Labs, which is a company that does exactly that. So let's see if they have a place where they kind of go over what they do exactly. Yeah, here's a good. So yeah, I don't think they have a good way to see what exactly they do until you kind of dive deep in. But for brevity, what Sauce Labs does, and they have a bunch of devices on their person. Like they have entire server farms with the newest iPhones, Android devices, whatever, right? And obviously, like for instance, I work at Synchrony, and even we had limited items to limited access to devices. So what we do is, because they would host Appium, right? Sauce Labs would host Appium in their servers. What we would do is we would write our scripts, and as long as we had a license to them, they would give us an API key. With that API key, if that checked out, we could run our test against their devices, right? So that's pretty much it.
What exactly does Sauce Labs do?
Say again?
What do they do again?
No. Let me stop me if I'm not making sense. So, Sauce Labs is just like any other company, right? The only thing is they specialize is like they have actual physical real devices, right? So the latest iPhone, they'll have it, right? And they'll have a bunch of it.
Physical phones.
Yeah, exactly. And they have a bunch of server farms with iPhones, right? And what they do is, in their servers, they host Appium, right? Because Appium gives them the capability of let me put it this way. Right now, I know we're running against emulators, right? Which is fine, but if you wanted to test against real world devices, I could plug my iPhone in here, and I could change a few settings around, and I could, run scripts against my physical
What's
phone.
the advantage of using a real phone over a...
Because emulators don't often kind of mimic real world conditions. Like, for instance, in your actual phone, right? You could have, bad Wi-Fi, and that could affect the app's performance. You could have your battery could affect your phone's performance. So many other factors to it, right? Stuff you have downloaded, etc. The emulators, all they are is in the name. They try to emulate real world conditions, but it's not, right? Because they'll try to mimic to the best of their abilities. Like, they don't actually run on hardware, right? They're using your computer's hardware, if you think about it, right? Your emulator is running off how good your computer is. Like with Fi, you saw how long his Pixel took to run, right? If I, with my MacBook M1, if I were to run that same emulator, it would be rocket fast, right? So that's not based on his Pixel's performance exactly. It's based on his actual computer, right? So it's not real world conditions, right? It's not using the Pixel's performance. It's using your computer's, right? More or less. It's gonna try to attempt it, but it will fall short. So in the real world, what you want to do is test against actual real devices, right? So obviously, imagine you can't give everyone an iPhone, whatever the latest one is, like the 13 Max Pro, right? You can't give them that; it's too expensive. So what you do is, as like a product owner, is you'd get a subscription here, saucelabs.com. They host a bunch of. Let me see if they could even show it. Like, I wish they would show it somewhere. But basically, they have a bunch of real devices, like the latest ones, even in beta, right? And that's pretty much it. As long as you have the license, you would run your scripts as you regularly would, as you guys have been doing so far. You would code it exactly as you have been doing. The only thing is you would change a few configuration settings right now. Like before that, you guys were used to system.set property to the local driver and everything. But the only difference thing is here is you'd be using the driver they have up in their servers. That's it. Nothing else. That's all you gotta know. And all this was just explaining why they go for this server approach. But did that kind of make sense ish? It'll make more sense as you keep going.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the only thing we're gonna do today is we're just gonna do this landing page flow. In other words, going through that. All right. So we're just gonna click through the app. Right, and let me start off with the main difference, and it'll be evident right away. So let me just type it out first. Or let me copy and paste. All right. So I put the path to our APK file. So here's the thing. What we just downloaded, this client, is the client that connects your code to Appium. What we did before, that whole setup step, let me pull it up. Here we were doing it physically, right? We were using Appium's interface to open up, to connect it to the emulator, right? But the question is, how do you connect your code to Appium and the emulator, right? And your code doesn't have to directly. So okay, there are three things then: Appium, Appium, this part which belongs to Appium, the emulator which belongs to Android Studio, and Java, which is its own thing, right? So basically, the way you should look at it is Java with this library has to connect with this Appium interface. And Appium, obviously, we put those environment variables before. If it gets the right message here, it'll pull up Android the emulator, and it'll run through it, and then you'll feed the results back. So let's start with that. So this is the first major difference. This one new class you'll have to learn to use. And before I even explain what it is, let me just pull it. And I did Command Shift O, so you didn't see what I did, but it all it gets pulled in from this library right here.
Where can I get the path and URL?
Say again?
Where do I get the path and URL? So that
Which path? What are you talking about?
string path, string URL.
Oh, this I just did it myself. Is that what you're asking?
Or just take your ship.
Yeah,
Path?
wherever you put it.
And then
I just had a pre.
What about the URL?
Oh, okay. So this is what the next thing I'm gonna explain. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, let me explain it right now. So what this, I'm sure you guys have seen this string before, like once in your life. It's kind of reminiscent.
Yeah.
Yeah, say it, Ish.
Like a server, localhost.
Yeah,
type
exactly.
thing.
Right. So what this means, and I could have just changed this with localhost, like literally the string localhost, and this would have been fine. So I'm sure you guys have configured routers before, and what that means is, once your router is connected to your network, your localhost is like your local network, right? And just like you connect your router, Appium itself, it's running locally, right? Basically think of it as, even if I hosted a site, you guys are used to, like www.google.com, right? Hosted on another server. That's on a remote server. But how do you indicate something you're hosting in your local machine? That's how you do it, right? But your question could easily be, all right, so I'm hosting so many things in my local, machine. I could be hosting, I don't know, like a printer or a router, right? So how does an Appium, like how does it differentiate a router, Appium, I don't know, like your printer? What do you guys think?
There are different port
No,
for each
you
one.
got it. Yeah. So where do you see that?
What?
You're saying port. You're on the right track. But
Yeah, isn't it the
how am I
4723?
Right. Exactly. So what Ish is saying is right here. This is the main thing that separates. You could have a bunch of things in your local host, right? You could, like I keep saying, your port, your router, your printer, anything that connects to your host. You have that, but then you need to differentiate. This is the port number, and this is the port number that Appium just comes with bundled by default, right? 4723. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so this is the next thing. Actually, let me type it out. As a matter of fact, let me not even type it out, because I have it right here. All right, what do you think this is? What does it remind you of what we just did?
The configuration? No, not the thing we made, whatever it is.
Right. What exactly? Ish, can you be more specific?
Doesn't this is how the Appium finds the
Right.
device?
Yeah, exactly. So look, let me just hit X, and you see it right here, the desired capabilities. You see the capability sets right
How'd
here.
you pull that up?
What do you mean?
This
That
screen
it
you're on right now, how'd you pull that up?
This right here?
Yeah.
Oh, I had it. Remember, we were setting it up before, right? The only thing is
Right, so how do I go there?
before Java wasn't in the picture. For you, make sure, I don't know if you'll have the same problem as Ish and Fa did, but what I did was, all right, so let me start it again. So once you start it, you can't see it, but let me show you what I did to go back to it.
Oh, yeah, that's why I couldn't get back to it.
Yeah. So let me show you. All right, so this is set up, right? If I hit X, I just go right back to, what I used before. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So remember, before it was just, us using Appium, and we were just, configuring it so we pull it up, right? So let me do it just again. Keep this in mind again. So obviously, Appium itself needs the desired capabilities, first of all, to know which Android version, etc., and the path name to actually install on the device, right? And that's all fine. But as of now, the only real utility, if we just do it through Appium, is just to refresh and, pull up the ID details and everything, right? Which is fine, but we can't actually automate it through Appium itself. Appium is just there to host the automation process. So how do we do that? Well, first Java has to connect to it, right? The JDK has to connect to it. You do that through basically the same process. Desired capability, you just instead of the JSON values here, you just put these little string paths, and the path here refers to wherever I put shipped. URL, you'll see how we do that in just a second. And I'm gonna put two more. Yeah, go ahead.
Why do you have to, if we already did it on Appium, why do we have to do it here also?
Right, because, all right, so like I said before, right? Appium itself, it could connect to it, right? But the thing is, how does Java itself, and you'll see.
Okay, yeah, they're three
right,
different.
Yeah, because it's exactly, these are three different things, right? Java itself has to connect to Appium. In order to do that, it needs to know how to do it, right? So to nudge it along, you gotta put the little paths. And I'm gonna put two more, and I'm gonna explain why I use them. So these obviously we didn't put in Appium just yet, and let me show you why. So, and this will actually kind of give you more clarity on that question you asked just now, Ish. So I could have technically put these Unicode keyboard reset keyboard here, as in right here. I could have done that, right? But let's see what happens when I didn't do it. So let me pull it up. I'm going to start it right now. So right now all it did is connected the app, and let me just get to a specific screen to it. So if I click here, actually it's not showing up right now. Oh, I guess it saved it. But basically, the point of these desired capabilities, I don't know why it's not pulling up, because Appium didn't have it. Maybe it saved this session from before because I was running tests before. But basically, the keyboard, I don't want it to pop up and block my screen. Basically, if I give it these Unicode keyboard and reset keyboard settings, anytime Appium clicks on this, you guys know, like all phones, what they do is pop up a keyboard. And with the library we were using, that's a problem, because it might, you can't see some of the items behind it, so it's best to just have this on. That's a small note to have. All right, so more or less, yeah.
Wait, hold on. Okay, so we added the dependency to the POM XML, right?
Yeah.
So that's for Appium, and then
Right.
desired capabilities is from the Appium library.
Yes.
And that allows Java to connect to the same emulator as Appium. So
Right, exactly. So Java doesn't connect directly to the emulator, right? Java connects to what?
Appium, and then
To Appium directly,
Yeah,
right? And
Yeah.
Appium, remember, how does Appium connect to the emulator?
through their same capability thing, right?
No, not the capabilities. Remember our configuration step, right? That's why it asks you for the home variable, right? So if we didn't specify that, it would have had no way to know where the emulator was.
So the Java home thing, is that how Appium and Java are linked, or like how
Right. No, that's a
how
good.
our Java code is linked to.
Right. So that's a good question. So this doesn't actually have anything to do with your code. This most likely you won't use it directly. But why you put Java home is because Appium itself is built in on Java, right? But in order to make any Java run, like anything, any kind of app you create, right? In order to make it run, you still need the JDK, right? So the reason why Appium needed the location is the same thing as asking is if you were to write this code right here, right? You would not be able to run it without that JDK. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right, so you
Yeah.
still need JDK. Just like Appium is built in JDK, in order for it to run, it's still, wherever it's being hosted, it needs that JDK file in wherever location it is, right? And, the Appium folks, if you download this, they're still asking, like, where's your JDK? Because otherwise, all just being pulled up, being able to do what it does, it still needs JDK because it's run on the code, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. And, Android Home is just for it to pull up the actual thing, the actual emulator. All right, so we got that, and now we're slowly getting down to actually pulling it up through Java. All right, so let me pull that in too. So just a slight differentiation. We use WebDriver. In this case, it will be Appium driver. Small, just subtle little changes. In this case, why do you think I'm using Android driver? Well, why not put why not do this? And keep going on.
What's it? And Android driver is the root class.
No, it is, but I'm talking about in a general sense. Why do you think they just didn't leave it as
You're
thing?
making a new Android driver.
Just thinking in a very
with-
general sense.
Through the Appium driver.
Say again?
You're making a new Android driver through through Appium, I guess.
I could do it. I could do this. I could just make it an Appium driver, right? Like I could reinstantiate it like this. So let me type it up. Give me a second. So you see there's no problems with this. Let's see what's going on here. So I could have put, hang on. Alright, so far so good. Like I could have done this, right? But why is there an Android driver over here? Like why would I, not that I'd rather do it, but why do I do it this way?
Does Android driver have more methods
It could, but that's not the answer I'm looking for. Why was it that we put WebDriver equals Chrome driver before? It's a simple answer actually.
Because we were using Chrome. Now we're using an Android.
Right, exactly.
Device.
So basically, there's an iOS driver, right? Let me see if that gets pulled in. I think it's in a separate library. Yeah, you see, I could have imported iOS driver, right? So in this case, you want to use Android driver. And just in case there are Android specific features, right? That's why they have a all-purpose general interface called Appium driver. But if you wanted to get more specific, in this case, which we want to do, Android driver.
So can
Say again?
Are you only teaching Android testing?
So the thing is, Android, like iOS, for some reason, it's really like difficult to work with, especially through Appium. But that's fine because Android really covers everything you'll need. There's not much. There really isn't too many differences, if at all.
What is the testing for like the apps for iPhone at your job?
Yeah, I actually do test iPhone, but like the problem is, you see how I got that APK file, right? This is where I got it from. Let me show you. If I go to this website, APK Mirror, they'll show you all kinds of apps you could use, right? The thing is, none of the original developers intended you to automate this, so it's really difficult to find one that actually works. Like it took me a while to find Shipped. Nonetheless, it worked, but a lot of these other ones straight up don't. But for iOS, like, forget about it. I couldn't even find anything that works, and it's Apple like shuts its, it's just probably like too difficult for get to get a respective app file. So we're just gonna stick with Android.
So, can you explain, in a general sense, like what you're doing here with the Appium driver equals new Android driver? So
Right. So remember, just think of this as, all right. Let me zoom it up a bit. So before you had the Chrome driver, right? And maybe this will kind of like answer your question. If I put the driver dot, look, what do you see?
So does the Android driver part specify, like, limit the methods you're using, so you don't get like maybe Appium driver also includes iOS driver methods?
Right. To an extent, that's a good way of looking at it. But for instance, the one main difference between iOS and Android is the way you pull in locators. You know how before you had expats? The way you do it in iOS and Android, there's a way to do it where it's slightly different. And if you didn't specify Android and iOS here, obviously that would kind of ruin your test cases, because Android has a specific implementation of how it runs it, right? iOS has its own way. So that's, from what I've seen, that's really the only major difference. But in order to really do it their respective ways, you got to specify which driver you're using, right? So that's.
So is Android driver a subclass of Appium driver?
So the way you should look at it is, this is, you know how we ran through abstract classes, right?
Yeah.
You got to look at it in it's more or less that sense. So let me like click into Appium driver, see what it says. So it doesn't specific. So yeah, you are right. It is a subclass, because anytime you have this format, right, where it's like it seems like a higher level class is derived off of it. This could have been an interface, this could have been an abstract class, or this could have been a regular class from which Android driver extends from, right? In this case, if you click into it, it pretty much tells you, right? Android driver just extended from it, right? And let's verify that. It doesn't say it directly here. Maybe it says somewhere else. Let me see. Yeah, right here. You see? Android driver extends Appium driver. So that's pretty much just it. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically this has pretty much the same exact, methods that your Selenium Chrome driver had, right? All right, let's keep going. And, I didn't even go over this part. So, and this would be the final major difference. Where you had your driver.get, this is kind of equivalent, because obviously driver.get, let me see if this even has it. This has it, but that's because all the libraries are kind of intermingled. But the point is, new URL, it's just pointing to wherever you're hosting that Appium session. Like if I were to have this down, if I didn't have this up and running, and if I were to hit run right now, it would not have worked, because it's not going to query up whatever this is pointing to, right? Because this server is not up. So now that we have it, let me just let it run. So let me put it up for 5 seconds. And after that, I'll put a driver.quit. So none of this is new to you. The only thing new to you is the desired capabilities, but that's pretty intuitive given what we already went over so far. So let me run that and let's see what happens. All right, so you see the server, it interfacing.
So is that the console right there?
Yeah, this is the Appium console. So this is communicating with this, and this is communicating with this. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. You just quit. And your Java session ended. You see no red. So far, so good.
Wait, you didn't quit it, did it?
Say again?
Did it quit?
Yeah, it quit. You don't see it, right?
Isn't that it right there?
Where?
The phone? The phone is still open?
Yeah, the phone is open, right? I don't care about the phone. I care about the actual app. And the app shut down. Let me do it one more time.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Let me do it one more time. Don't worry. Yeah, you should be asking these questions, right? Because you can't let little things like that slide, or else you're just gonna operate blindly. So all these console tags just telling you what your driver is doing. Right. So it just waited for 5 seconds. It didn't even it's too slow to even it's not gonna wait for the landing page to happen because I told it to just that driver session just wait for 5 seconds, right? And that took more than 5 seconds, so just quit. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, now let me take out the sleep and let's actually try to land on something. All right. So before I even start, I'm going to put all the test cases here, and I'm just going to create one page object for the landing page. So this I'll refactor that and call it, or no, never mind. I'll just create a new page objects package, and I'll put landing page here. So again, none of this should be new. So landing page is just is going to be a catch-all term for all the pages you use, while you log in. It's not a big deal. So
I mean, I'm guessing most QA testing is on phones, not on like websites.
no, it's actually pretty.
Depends on the job, right?
It's pretty. Yeah, it depends, but it's I'd say it's half and half now. Web apps are just as important nowadays.
Okay.
Right. Yep. So for a quick review, anyone want to help me out with setting this up? The page objects. Obviously, you had your base page. And that's all the hints I'll give. I just don't want. So obviously, the only thing is the landing page. What is the base page? Well, just
First, you have to make it abstract.
Okay.
The base page should be abstract.
Okay.
Then you need a constructor.
Let me help you out here and put it side by side.
So the base page.
Hang on. So obviously, what I'm looking to ultimately do, and I'll help you out a bit here. Wait a second. So and I'll probably have like some kind of flow here. So let's say flow. Oh, it's better to call this test then. Test one. Test one. Right? Say flow. Landing page starting flow. So that'll be the method. All right. So now we just need to fill everything in. Let me make this out a bit more. X this out. Okay, you're good to go.
So I guess you do Appium driver. So
Where?
you just without instantiating it.
Where? In base page?
Yeah, in base page. Yeah, and then you create a constructor. You accept Appium driver as a parameter. And then you do this dot driver equals driver.
Okay.
And that's it for the constructor. And then trying to think. No, there's nothing else in base page yet. So then landing page will just also have a constructor, and it's just called super driver.
And driver should go in, right? Because we're accepting right here.
Yeah. That calls super,
Okay.
and that should be it.
Let me see what's wrong here.
You have to put extends
Oh,
base
yeah,
page.
you're right. Let's see that. See, it's still not working. I thought we already did that. Oh, yeah, it's just a bug. Watch, if I just hit save here, it'll work. All right. Okay, you on?
Isn't that it?
Yeah, more or less. But you should also put like a few of the generic, you know,
Like before, like what do you mean?
functions.
Oh, like click and stuff?
Yeah.
Then
Oh, okay. But didn't you say it doesn't use XPath, use like locators or something?
Yeah.
Well, that is
No,
a
I got you.
right?
Yeah, I got you. That's a good point. It's still more or less the same, but we'll wind up on that. That's a good point. But for now, let me just make sure this is working. And import it. Oh yeah, let's put that starting flow here. Okay. So I'll kind of cover this now because for this part, you know, we checked that our capabilities work. We checked that our driver pulls up the emulator. And now everything's basically gonna go in that starting flow, right? Just for the sake of, you know, having it nicely put in one page. You know, when you guys do it, obviously I want it to be, you know, a lot more neater and following page objects, patterns and stuff. All right, so let me cover this a bit because it's gonna be the main thing. Okay. All right, so let me actually pull it up. So now we're good enough to just start running through that flow and just trying to work through the actual selectors. So let's see what the slight differences are. All right, so you pull it up, and this is the first thing you see. So we could skip it, but I'd rather find out what this is. So let me refresh it and click it, and this is what you get. So the ID is something you usually hope for, and why it's helpful is because a lot of time developers, instead of you having to use the XPaths, which as a side note, a lot of times it does generate it, but a lot of times it doesn't work. So that's the problem. Because Appium natively isn't controlled by XPaths. XPaths belong to web apps, so you got to get in the habit of not relying on them too much. You could resort to them, but usually it's always better to have the ID. But a lot of times developers, you know, they don't end up tagging the app appropriately, and you need them to be tagged to actually interact with them, right? The only reason, you know, this is being highlighted is because one, you know, Android does recognize it, but if we didn't have this, Appium has no way to actually, you know, select it and highlight it and everything. So let's see if this actually works. So the good thing about Appium is you could hit this button, right, search for element, right, and you see all these locator strategies, right? ID is the one we're going to use for this arrow, so let's try it. So I'm going to hit that and I'll put scroll to next page, and that's going to be the literal ID of it. So let's search for it. So that didn't work. Scroll, let me see. Oh, accessibility is a small difference, but it makes an actual change. All right, so it found an element, right? So if you click it, it tells you exactly which one it's going to highlight. So let's take that and save it. So we'll start, you know, kind of haphazardly putting the actual locators here. So just keep track of it, and we'll call that button initial arrow, because I know there's well, let's put button arrow actually. Right, so nothing crazy here. Just like you had your XPaths, what we're gonna do here is you just driver.find driver.find element. So you're usually used to by dot XPath or by dot it would be accessibility ID. So okay, here's another thing. Accessibility ID, this little attribute right here, this belongs to Appium, right? This is why, and this by class that we've been using, that belongs to the regular WebDriver. So if I did put by dot, if I were gonna try to type in accessibility ID right now, let me try it. A, C, automatic is just not appearing, right? So here's another small slight difference. Mobile by, that's it, right? And you see it that being in the very first method in the list. So let's use mobile by, and we'll just say button arrow for now, and we'll say dot click, right? So Ish, to answer your question, it is more or less the same, just a slight difference to it. So now that we know that, how do you want to fill in that abstract class so we don't have to put driver.find element again? Anyone can answer this.
What would you say to?
So obviously there's going to be a lot of elements coming up, right? And I don't want to keep typing out driver.find element, mobile by, accessibility ID button, etc., right? So what's a way to make it shorter?
I guess
Make a function for click.
Right. So guide me through that.
Public void click,
Okay.
and you can put XPath in there.
For now, let's put selector, just as a general.
Can't you also make a method for just find? So you could just like. Never mind.
No, that's a good. Think about that. Keep that in your head. I can do it, but usually I'm just clicking, right? So what's even the point? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If ultimately I'm just gonna click stuff, there's no real point. Okay.
Just put the driver.find element of the mobile by dot.
Hang on,
You know,
accidentally. Yeah, I got you. Keep going.
I
Driver dot find element. You said mobile by, right?
yeah.
Okay. Accessibility ID, selector, right? And click. That's it. So instead of doing all this, let me comment it out. I could have just done this. Button arrow, right?
Yeah, but select.
What happened?
Don't you gotta put something in the? Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah, I put it there. Oh, bug again. So I just saved this and it worked. Yeah, this will happen. Don't get freaked out when it happens to you. All right, so we click that. Let's move on to the next one. So let's see what this is called. So it's the same thing, right? So we could just leave it. So we won't change anything. We'll just keep in mind that you have to click button again. Say again, Pa. Go ahead.
Can you go back to the first page again?
Yeah, I'll try. I don't think the app supports it, but if not, I could just reset it. Let me see.
You have to use both phones all the time. Like you do something on the main emulator, and then you have to refresh every time.
I could do it directly. Let me show you. So I could tap this, and I could say tap, and then it'll send the instruction there, right? And then it'll do it automatically for you. Do you mean that way?
Wait, what do you mean? Do it again?
All right, let me start from the beginning.
What I'm saying is, like, do something on the emulator. How come the Appium doesn't like automatically refresh?
It kind of does. Let me show you. All right. I could have done this. So this is Appium right now, right? This is the emulator. This is Appium, right? So I could have highlighted this, and I could have tapped this, and it would have refreshed automatically. I mean, that's the closest thing you have, really. That's it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, there's another button here, another thing. Let me pull this down to the left.
So,
yeah.
You know how when you switch pages, it kind of takes a while, like
refreshes. You mean, right?
Yeah, that, and also like the emulator itself, it takes a while. I don't know if it's because of your processor or whatever. It kind of takes a while to get to the next page, right?
You mean the natural transition of the app?
Huh?
You mean the natural transition of the app?
Yeah, like.
Oh, that I can't control. That's just what the developers intended,
Yep. Can you go to the next page? Like,
okay.
Let me see
so you're gonna click this and you're gonna tell me what you mean?
Yeah.
All right. Like that?
Okay. So, isn't the Java code gonna run faster than your emulator can move to the next page?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, it will. Yeah,
That's what sleep is for.
yeah, that's what sleep is for. But that's a good question. There's another
but
method. Yeah.
is sleep running every time you have?
No, 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 no. It's not, and that is something up. Like you have to kind of code that up yourself, and obviously you want to do it in a way where you're not creating a sleep method every time, right? You have to kind of architect it in a way where it's not really inefficient for you to keep. Like one problem I noticed in my actual job is people just put random sleeps everywhere, right? So the problem with doing that is sometimes the app runs faster than normal and sometimes runs slower than normal, right? And if you put a random sleep, you're not sure why it's failing, even though it has the correct steps. So you'll see that in your career as you go. Like yeah, you could use sleep sometimes, but it's not good to keep using it or keep abusing it.
So that's a legitimate problem, right? For the Java code to run faster than the app is loading.
Right, but we kind of went over a small strategy of how to fix that. So, for instance, let me show you. So, you know how we, initialize the driver? We could have done this. There's this, I think I did briefly go over this, but driver.manage timeout. So there's this method, right? We did definitely want to go over this, where you specify what implicit wait does is it says, all right, obviously some pages, some apps are slow sometimes and fast sometimes. Wait a max amount of time. So in this case, to be, hang on, let me see where. So let's say I put 10, right? And I put, let's say, that's in seconds. And you specify that here. So what this is saying is, all right, load the driver up, but just keep in mind that anytime you click something or send keys, something's gonna happen here. And if the transition takes too long, I don't want you to fail the test, right? Just give it a second, or rather 10 seconds here. I could have put 5, I could have put 10. I put 10 because sometimes, it just takes that long to load. And without failing it, just wait after you click and see if your expected element afterwards is turning up. So this is ultimately this is the best way to control it. But a lot of times you might want to go right for the sleep, like the sleep one you're used to. That's your question?
Yeah.
So we'll leave that here actually, because this app is actually pretty slow sometimes. All right. And there's another thing. Let me refresh it. All right. So there's another button here. So we'll put 1/3 click. And they're all the same accessibility ID, so we're all good.
Is,
Say again?
like how common is having to do like relative expat type of stuff on apps? Like like stuff doesn't have IDs or tags, so you have to start from like a higher up
it's
element.
usually you don't want to do it, period, but it's something if you're forced to do it. Like usually for mobile apps, expat is your last resort. You just don't want to use it, but sometimes sometimes you have to, and sometimes even that doesn't work. In that case, yeah.
Accessibility ID, do you ever have to do that?
Say again?
Do you have to do that with accessibility ID?
What about it?
Like have to start
No. This doesn't work in any type of hierarchy. It just takes exactly what you put it as, right? Whatever the developers tag their element with, that's what you use.
Everything is tagged.
Huh?
Is everything tagged?
Outside of XPath, everything is more or less tagged. Yeah.
But there's never apps that
So what is the accessibility ID for the skip button?
Whoa, okay, let's click it. See, they didn't tag it, right? So that's going to be a problem, and then you have to decide what you want to use. This XPath that gets generated is just what Appium is using with its algorithm to kind of guess. But let's try it. Let's see if it works. So let me copy this, and they have it here where you don't have to do it through Java. So let's do XPath and let's try their selector. All right, so in this case it worked. But yeah, that worked, but a lot of times it doesn't, and that's when it becomes a problem. Their algorithm messes up and they give you some kind of huge XPath that you don't want to use. So it gets good not to rely on it. And there are alternate methods that I'll show you how to do it, and it's usually by class chaining, and I'll show you what that means in a second. All right. So let's hit next, and that will be the third one. And now there's a get started button. And I know this looks repetitive, but luckily, like if you get it right the first time, you'll never have to extract, you know, IDs again. All right, so now, okay, so I see another accessibility ID. We'll copy that. So this is going to be a new one. So let's call it button get started. That's a problem. It keeps, I don't like using here. All right. Refresh this. We'll use a continue as guest. Continue as guest. So you see right there what happened. Like if I selected it directly, it didn't have that ID. That could happen a lot of times in that they tag the surrounding element and not the one inside of it. That's fine, as long as it has it. All right, so we'll put private string button continue as guest. Oh, I didn't click the button get started. Let me do that. Button continue as guest. Continue as guest. Right? Let me click button continue as guest. Alright, so far so good. Click that. Let's see what pops up now. Alright. So this, I don't want to search up a new address, right? I want this to do it for me. So obviously, see, this is what I'm talking about. You see, look at this XPath. I guarantee if I copy and paste it, just won't work. Let me see. So, all right. So another case, it does work. But again, imagine having to copy paste this into your, Eclipse. It's going to be so large that it's just going to completely ruin how your class looks, right? So it does work, but I just don't want to use it, right? So right now, I'll take that as a cue to kind of show you an opposite way to do it. So I'll show you a way to do it in a way where you don't have to do this huge XPath. So let me just show you, prove it to you that XPath does still work, right? And in this case, if I select it, you'll see this type of hierarchy forming, right? So instead of going down the entire hierarchy, let me just get to the very bottom, because this is the one that's actually pointing to this, right? So let me try that. So I'll put that relative hierarchy, android.widget.text view, and since that has a use current location thing, right? So let me point that out. Hang on. So let's see if that works. Alright, so I'm gonna hit run. So in that case, it works, right? The problem is, it might work here, right? But it could still fail once you're actually running the scripts. So instead of using this, let's introduce one more new concept. And this is the major thing that you gotta have to pay attention to, because this is one of those main class naming strategies that separates the Android driver from the iOS driver. So let me X this out. So I could use this, it did highlight it, but you try it out yourself and see if that works. But in the script, when I tried it, it was failing. That's all I'll say about that. So instead of doing this XPath strategy, there's another one for this UI automator selector strategy, and this belongs natively to the Android Studio. So before going about how to do it, let me pull up their library. So this I'm going to link to Teams because I do want you guys to look it over. Let me just first put it in Teams. So basically, this is what the actual developers use. This library. It's all written in Java, so it's not going to be anything new. But the point of it is if you're trying to look through the UI elements, this is just another option, right? And the thing about this is it has a much higher success rate. So and the method names are a lot more cleaner. So let me show you what I mean by that. But the thing is, it just kind of works. It kind of works like it's its own like Java method or constructor. So let me show you what I mean by that. Like that. Like you've seen this structure before. This is like when you're creating a new constructor. No different at all. This is just how. This is because basically you're injecting this into Android, the emulator, and it's written in Java. Right? So obviously you can't use it directly because that actual library belongs to Android. If I were to use new UI selector here, it wouldn't work because there's no library for it here, right? Unless you're directly coding for Android. So before doing that, let me create one new method that's specifically for clicking this. So we'll say, because I can't click this again. Just for now, I don't want to do it. So I'll show you what I mean by that. From now on in, I'm not going to click directly with the with the IDs here. I'm going to make them their own method. So anytime I click something, I'll have a method for it. And what that serves is, obviously you won't do that in the real world, or even when you do the homework. This is just to give it a little more, it's going to make more sense. And you won't kind of keep seeing clicks here. So let me show you what I mean by that. So it would be click use current location button. And I'll put the selector here. Whatever it is, right? And the selector is a string. And just to reiterate the point of using that, so previously we were using IDs or accessibility IDs, but there's expats here, there's everything here, everything you used before. Instead of doing that, I'm going to use the method I was just showing you, which is called Android UI Automator. .click, right? Nothing else different. Let me zoom in a bit. So just to reiterate, use your mobile buy. I could use XPath. I could use ID, right? I could use accessibility ID, like right here. All our click methods are written in thing.
Can you put that in the base page as well?
Yeah, I could put anything I want in the base page, but for now, just to make it cleaner for now, and just to show you everything, all the action going on here, I'm going to leave it all here. So let me just pull up the base page. Right. So we use mobile buy.accessibility ID here. We're not going to do that from now on. From now on, we're going to use this new method of Android UI Automator. So this is how it works. It's just going to look like a standard constructor. That's the main thing. So it shouldn't look, foreign, right? And just in this case, there's no straightforward string telling you what you're using, right? Give me a second. So just like a regular constructor in Java, you create it, and if you look at the library here, you could just kind of experiment, right? You kind of experiment with what you want to, with what you're given here. So if I click on use current location, has a ridiculous XPath, so I'm not even going to look here. What I'm going to look at is anything else I have over here. And a good place usually to start it with is a lot of times just the class name. So let's start with class, and then we'll specify the Android widget text view. So I'm getting this method .class name from here. See, that's why you see the camel case class name. You got to do it exactly as is. You just treat it like a regular Java constructor, because that's what it is really. Class name, and it accepts a string for the class name. So what do you think goes in here? Remember, it's a string.
Android.widget.text view.
Yep. And you don't have any compilers to correct you, so you just got to be careful, or else it's not going to pull up anything. So let's hit search, and which is fine, but the problem right now is it's too general, because all of these are Android widget text views, right? Very slightly different, and we want to get to this, right? Let's see how we do it. Okay, so we know if we run this, we do query it as among one of the very many results, right? But let's see if there's anything here that could be of use. So another thing you might want to look at is the text, right? So the text, that actually separates it from everything else. The text says use current location, right? As opposed to where should we deliver, all of this, right? Whatever it is, that could, separate it. Let's see how we handle text with the library. So I see a few here. Text contains, text matches, text starts with. Let's do text contains. You could have done this. You could have tested it out on your own time. You could use this or this. This needs you to require a little bit of regex, which you could use, but let's use text contains. Who wants to do this? I wish I could make this bigger, but I can't. Anyone? So we got this so far.
Small for me, my tiny screen.
All right, let me put it on notes first.
I think you can make it bigger on clicking that corner.
What we'll do is we'll put it here. So this is what we have so far. Can't zoom it. What the hell? Shift command. Okay.
Can you then put period, like dot at the end of that?
Yeah. Keep going. I'm just trying to zoom out for you.
Text contains.
Okay.
And then just put in the string, which is use current location.
Like this.
Yeah, use current location.
Right. Yep, that's it. And just take a look at it for a second. This is the exact.
Do you need a colon?
No, you don't need the
semicolon at the end?
It passes the colon, to that library. But just take a second to look at it for a second. This is nothing new. All you're doing is using a constructor as you regularly would, and this method is actually preferable. Like this for mobile automation. If you ever find yourself in an interview, they're gonna ask you how to do this because this is just straight up preferable. Not only does it work more often, it's more accurate. It's just easier.
How would they phrase the question?
They'll tell you tell me about a few of the ways you would find elements in thing. What are your strategies for finding elements in mobile applications, right? And we'll go over the one for Android, and I'll help you guys with iOS in another time. But
Method called again?
say again.
What is this method called again? Like
which one?
This technique you're using.
Strategy?
It's just called. Let me see what it's called, because it's just all we're really doing.
That question when they ask you that?
Say again.
How would you answer that question if they ask you that?
You could just say you use the like the native UI
selector.
Yeah, it's just UI selector. That's all it is. It's just a package. It's no different from any other library you've been using, right? But we'll find a way to word it better.
I would use the UI selector library.
Right.
Okay. I don't gotta elaborate any further.
Not usually, but they'll probably tell you. All right, let's say how would you find like this? Like let's say you had a UI element with certain class name, right? But you're pulling up 7 of this like exact same situation here. Like you had all of these text views, right? How would you separate one of them from the rest, right? And you could just say, all right, maybe I want to
use the text contains method.
Right, exactly. Like depending on if this text view relative to the other elements has different texts, I would just pull up the text view method, and I'll make sure it's thing. Like I'll just put in the text and I'll just pull it up. Usually those are like they'll probably throw a little curveball just to make sure you're aware of the library. But this is something you only pick up the more you use, right? All right, so we got this, and let's see if that hones it in. So remember, last time what happened is it pulls 7 or something like text views. So let me paste that and see what happens. Let's see, it didn't work. Let's see what it says. Unclose parentheses. All right, something simple. Give me a second. All right, what change right there? Not sure. But you guys see it's basically, let me copy and paste it into notes and compare it.
That's the
So
expat that they give you.
No, I just I had one pre-written and it worked.
Oh, okay.
So let's say this works. This is wrong. Let's see what's the difference. So this was wrong and this was right.
Look exactly the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It could be like an errant period or something. I'm not sure.
Oh,
You see
I
something?
I don't know if this makes a difference, but it's kind of it probably doesn't make a difference. But your quotation marks are italicized.
No.
That
That doesn't matter.
That's all I can see.
All right, let's try it one more time. So I just copy pasted that. That's giving me an error. And just so you guys see it, because it could be something really stupid that we're all not seeing. So now I'm copy and pasting this, and it works. I don't know, some weird. Yeah, it could be, I don't know, you might be right. Maybe there's something here I italicize. Where do you see the italicization?
All your quotation marks, quotations, in the parentheses, yeah, those quotations.
But
that one looks different than that one looks...
Oh shit, you're right.
It looks different.
There is a small...
One's italicized, one's not, or something about it is different.
Alright, let me try that then. I don't know. I think notes is. You might be right, actually. I think that's it, because there's no way this is a thing. No, I think you're right, actually, because yeah, I think that's it. So I have it written down below, right? But what I did is I used it first, and then I copy pasted here. This we wrote first here, and scratch pad, right? So I think that's it, yeah. Because there's nothing else different. That sucks because I don't know, because I'm trying to write it here so it's easier for you guys to read. I'm not sure why this keeps reverting. Like, look, we could do this and it changes back. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's small things like this, because this right here is a completely different character.
So copy the quotation from the one that works and paste it into the one that doesn't work.
Right, let's see that. That's a good point.
It's the quotation mark.
All right, let's try it. All right, now let's try it.
There's another one. Actually, that one might be the same.
Yep, you're right. That was it.
Wow, that's so weird.
Yeah, small shit like that. All right, whatever, it works. All right, so now that we see it works, let's take that and I mean keep small stuff like that in mind, because when you're not seeing a bug and it's like ruining your mood and stuff, it could be something as silly as that. So let me paste that. And don't mind these. Eclipse does that automatically. And the reason, what I mean is the diagonals. Like, we didn't put any diagonals in the original one. So Eclipse needs to put, did it automatically for you. Basically, we already had quotes in it, but remember, quotes signify the beginning and end of a string, right? So if we didn't have that, let me delete it, right? It would stop here. You get what I'm saying?
Okay.
That makes sense? So that's
what if you use single quote things? That's how you signify the quotes within a quote.
The problem with single quotes is I'm pretty sure the UI selector thing, it expects double quotes, but don't quote me on that. But I don't want to screw around with it. That's why I need thing. But for Java strings, you need double quotes. You can't use single quotes. Single quotes are for the character variables.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's put that here. So we click the button continue as guest, and I'll put click use current location button. All right. Let's see what comes next. All right. So this is another thing. So this is not a part of the app. So what I mean by that is this is a part of Android's native notification system or prompting system, right? And there's a specific way to handle that. You could get the elements while using the app, only this time don't allow. But I'd rather not even do that because Appium comes, prepared for it. Like in case you get a system prompt. So this part belongs to Android. It's just the app, leans on it to tell the user like, all right, do you want your device to let this app use your location? So let me show you how to do that. So now we'll say public void. Let's say accept prompt, right? And the way you do this is here. So switch to, all that means, so switch to is like anytime something pops up in a screen. You could have done this, we didn't go over it because we didn't see it too much happen in the web apps, but it also supports this method. So if I click that, you'll see, frame. Frame is like, if anytime you go to a web page and you see a pop-up, it's the same exact concept, right? But your driver won't recognize it until you actually switch to it. It's considered a different frame, right? So, so you got your frame, but in this case, this is called is an alert. Right? And you could frame onto it, but it's easier to use the alert method. So you'll see alert right here. I'll put alert. And you simply accept it. So accept, what it does, it selects either one of these. I'm not exactly sure. I'm pretty sure it's the first one. Or you could dismiss it, which it'll show the don't allow. And all that is pre-recorded. That's why it's easily able to recognize it. So in this case, we'll put accept. And stop me if I'm going too fast, but this should have been fairly straightforward.
This is all being recorded, right?
Yeah, it's all being recorded. Don't worry. Right. All right. So this is gonna click either one of these. Let's see where it takes us now. So now this generates this location. The problem right now is, what do you think it is? This could be any location, right? So we can't lean on the text like we did before. You know how before we were able to validate it through add current location? This could have been a different text. What do we do then? So let's see. So let me refresh it. Hang on. All right, so just like before, when I'm not sure what to do, clearly right away I know I can't lean on text, right? Because I know for a fact this will change, and this could destroy my scripts if I don't account for it. This could have been a completely different address. So let's try the class again. Let's see what happens. So again, always remember you select to select UI Automator selector, right? Otherwise, it's just not gonna, it's not gonna do anything. If you select XPath or even class name, you're selecting this. I don't want to use Notepad, and let me try another. Let me try this document. All right, so off the bat, I'm going to try the same exact thing. New. All right, that's another problem. Where? Man.
I think you could, can't you?
Yeah, I got it.
You know where it says for your search for element? I think you can make that smaller box bigger. The selector box.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, good point. I didn't even see that. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so just by class name, in this case, what would it be? Same thing, right? Android
widget, text view.
Text view. All right, let's try it. Let's see what happens. All right, again, the same problem. When you have 9 elements, so let's see what it selects. This, that, but we need that, right? So let's see what we can use. So I see an index value, and I'm going to it obviously, right? Because well, let's see first of all. So let me go back to it and let's see what's separating it.
So the element IDs are all different. Why can't we use the element ID?
Where do you see that?
The thing you're highlighting.
You're talking about right here?
You highlight. Oh yeah, that.
This, I'm pretty sure this is not like, well, let's see if it changes. No, look, it's not changing. You see?
Oh, well, okay, then it was when you went into that box.
What was it changing? I didn't even
the search box.
Let me see.
And you click search. Why can't you use data, whatever that is?
This is something else. This is like referring to, this is just like a different value separating the web elements themselves. But the ultimate element ID, that stays the same. Yeah. I mean, let's see, let's click through it ourselves. So element ID stays the same, but do you notice anything else that's kind of changing?
Actually, they're all changed. The element ID is changing. Just gotta give it a second and it changes.
Yeah, you see that problem? It's like, I'll look into it, but I do know I'm like uncomfortable with using it. I'm pretty sure this is subject to change, but I'll try it. But I don't think there's any direct ways to handle element IDs. So outside of that, I do notice the index, right? Index is there's some duplicates, but it does change. So let's see. So this itself has an index of 0, but the problem is I'm seeing other indexes of 0. So I see this is index, but at least for the most part, this does narrow it down. So let's see.
So
yeah,
what happens in the instance that, let's say you create this and you use, index of 0? What happens if the programmer then makes a change and change the index to 1 or something for whatever reason?
that is a major problem, and that's something you should definitely account for. And you have to make your IDs generalized, but that's almost the only real way to fix that is if the developers do it in a way where they keep the IDs, not this element ID. That's why I don't want to use it. You remember the accessibility IDs? They tag that, and as long as they keep that consistent, your script should always have them. What I'm teaching you right now is in the worst case where you have nothing to work with, right? Nothing is properly tagged. XPath is giving you this, which is unusable pretty much. So in this case, you usually want to lean on this. That's why they always, ask you the questions regarding the UI automated selector, because when you don't have, IDs tagged, this is usually the best strategy.
So even if they have the IDs tagged, can't they just change the tag?
They can.
ID?
They can, but unless they
without telling you?
They can, but they shouldn't. You can hold them accountable if they do that.
And then you're pretty much screwed. Like that would take you a long time to figure that out, wouldn't it?
No, not necessarily. If it was
not that hard.
Yeah, if it was working before, right, and if it suddenly stops working, you could go and investigate. Say, all right, this was working, and now suddenly in a step that it was always working, and it's starting to fail. Like, what's up with that? And
Gotcha.
Right, and a lot of times it tells you like. It won't, like, for instance, let's say it failed on this step when you were typing in the address, right? So you're suspicious because your script is failing, so you pull up Appium and you click it, and if it had that accessibility ID before, and if it didn't suddenly have it, you'll know right away, all right, something happened to it. Either they changed it, modified it, or deleted it, right? So it's not the worst thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So in this case, let's just stick with index because I wanted to show you guys something specific. So it has a 0 to it. So let's see what happens. So again, first check if there's a method for it. And you see right here, one of the methods for it, index, and it tells you to enter a number. In this case, we'll put 0. Let's see what pops up. All right, so now we narrowed it down to 3. So we got 1, 2, which is what we want, and 3. So in these cases, what you usually want to do is there's one more method to keep track of. And we could use this before when we had like 11 options. But in this case, we narrowed it down, and it's more likely that something won't break if there's not 11 elements to keep track of. Now there's only 3, right? So what do you think? How do I use this, do you think?
The index of it, like which instance it is. So this would be like the second instance.
Right. So I saw 3 instances, right?
Yeah.
Well, let me see. Okay, so how do I do it?
Dot instance.
Yep. Exactly how a regular Java works.
Now, does instances start at 0 or does it start at 1?
We could test it. Let's try with 0, see what happens. Okay, so clearly it starts at 0, right? What do you want to try now?
So instance would be 1 then.
All right, let's see.
Because it was the middle one, wasn't it?
Yep, that's it. All right, so let's take that. And we'll put it right here. Let's say, what do we call it? Button current location. Oh no, we're not putting it here. Just to separate it. So we accepted the prompt. Let's say click current location address. All right. Okay, so we got that. Click that, see what pops up. All right, save, and let's kind of rush through this. It shouldn't be any different. All right, let's see what happens when go to save. All right, what do we have? In this case, let's not even try to go for class. Why do you think that is? We could have went for class, but at this point, right? There are a few buttons here. But let's say I want to go right to it. What do you think? What else do you think I could do? I don't see any text filled out, but what do you think?
You could just take the X path, but you said not to do that. Right?
Forget about the X. Like, don't even for mobile. This is the worst thing. If you're interviewing for a mobile position, this is the worst thing they want to hear, because there's something about the X path. It's not optimized for Appium. So once you start using it, the scripts take forever, right? So you got slow scripts on top of it. So let's not even talk about X path. So among the attributes, what else do you think we could use?
Element ID.
No, forget about that too. This is something. Forget about that.
Class.
I said we could use class, but I want to go right to it. How do you think I could do that? What's something unique you think this has that?
Wait, what are you trying to get to again?
This one right here.
Save button. Okay.
Clickable?
A lot of these things seem to be clickable though, right? Like look, clickable true, clickable true.
Content description.
Right, because it says save, right? The problem is there are two save buttons, but again, like we saw before, we could have just used the instance method, which would be easy because there's only 2 instances of this, right? So luckily, if you look at the library a bit, give me a second. Dark mode is really fucking things up here. Hang on. Yeah, so content description is just another short term for description, right? Basically what the developers did is not only did they add this UI element to it, but they also tagged it with a description to it. And that's good for us because we'll need it. You could experiment with all of these methods. I'm just going to use this first one just for brevity's sake. So let's see if that works. Let me expand that a bit. So I'm not even going to use class. We've been using class names before. I don't even need it because, now that we know how instance works, we could just assume the description method works. So let's say dot description save, right? Search, and just as we predicted, there's two instances. So what else do you think I add here?
Dot. What was that method?
Instance.
Okay. Dot instance 1.
Right. All right. Let's see. And there you go. Right. See, it's really simple. Like once you first kind of get the hang of it, it's a breeze to use. All right. So
Yeah, I can see this being pretty easy
much
once
better
you
than
get the
XPath,
hang of
right?
it.
Because you're used to that format since it looks like Java. Well, it is Java. So let's say click save address button.
So this that you're doing, how long typically do they give you to do this? Like, well, it sounds like a homework assignment, but
Oh, we're
when
almost
you're on the
well,
job,
with the
like, is this
path. We're
something they
almost done.
expect you to do within a day?
Oh hell yeah, yeah. It won't take longer than a day, but you would do it in a way where you would put it in an Excel sheet or something like that, right? So where if anyone wanted to create their own scripts, they could just refer to the selectors you extracted, right? It won't take longer than a day. Like right now it seems to be taking long because we're slowly, getting familiar with the methods. But once you're good at it, it'll almost feel like second nature. Where at times you might not even have to, pull this up to verify yourself. You could not even pull this up. Like you could just, hash it out just based on what you see. Like you highlight it. You see.
Yeah, but you know how we're going through we're just doing one thing. You have to test every single clickable thing, every single thing on the site, on this page, don't you?
Yeah, you
Like
do.
you have to make sure the X button works, that other save button works.
Yeah, like I said, like the initial setup phase is, it's obviously a little repetitive. But once you do it that first time, you don't have to do it again. It's like boilerplate code, and you do that really with everything. Developers do that in their own terms, right? But once you do that first time, you don't have to touch it again because everything is there for you. After that, you just have to, work on your framework. That makes sense?
But but this is just the setup page. But even when you're on like the, the main page of a app, you
Yeah.
have to make sure every single thing works on that page.
Yeah, but it's usually you separate the work and all that. Like everyone's responsible to map it out. But once you do it that first time, what else do you have to do? It's all there for you. And if you wrote it out right, it won't be bad. That's all I'll say. Like you don't have to refer to that.
Does your whole team works on the same code?
Yeah.
Same time?
Yeah.
Simultaneously?
Yep. So they'll use your XPaths your selectors that you created. You'll use theirs, and as long as everyone is playing by the rules and everything, it'll be a breeze to use. And you won't have to use directly reference any of them. You'll have big wrapper functions that do like a huge tasks on themselves. But what I'm trying to say is, the initial setup phase is obviously naturally going to be a little involved, right? But after that, you won't have to worry about this again. That's really it. That sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I keep forgetting to put these in. All right. Where are we? Okay. We saved that. And now let's say we're taking that first store. Okay. Let's see what we have. So I don't see anything anything that really pops up. So let's keep clicking around, see if. Okay. So now it kind of changed, right? And if any time you click something and nothing like worthwhile is popping up, move your mouse around, see if there's anything more specific. So if you look at here, let me see, where was it? Right there. Right? Keep track of that content description, right? It says double tap to change to Smart and Final. My problem was with this Smart and Final, that would not obviously Smart and Final. If I were to use this, obviously I can't refer to BevMo, CVS, all that stuff, right? So let's see if there's any kind of continuity right there. Double tap to change to BevMo. Double tap to change CVS. So there's a pattern here, and usually anytime there's a pattern, there's we could do something with it. So let's see if there's a method that kind of could work with that. So before we use description, right? And that gets the absolute string value. But do you see any other method that could kind of get a partial match? Because that's what we need. What do you think? Just based off like your basic understanding of natural language, what do you think would work here?
Wait, ask the question again.
So I'm interested in, so you see how it says double tap to change to CVS, right?
Yeah.
So someone put that, the developer tagged that, right? So my thing is, I can't use this, all of it like as is, right? Because CVS, that's the content description for CVS, right? But if I click here, this is the content description for BevMo, right?
Like part of the string you wanna.
Right, exactly. I want part of the string, right?
Yeah, so you could do description contains.
Right, right, yeah. So let's try that.
Or why can't you even use the first one, just description?
So that maps
Descriptor.
the complete like description. So for
The whole
instance,
thing.
yeah, right. So it won't, if I put double tap, right, as an example, there's nothing that just says double tap, right? So that won't return anything to you.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? But
Gotcha.
if I were to use a partial match, it'll say, all right, get whatever that says double tap. You know what I'm saying? And in that case, after I do that,
gotcha.
I could just get the instance, right? So let's try that. So again, I don't even need the class name at this point, just because nothing here. I really doubt. I don't even have to look, but nothing has that double tap thing to it. So let's say dot description contains double tap. I'm not even gonna bother with to change to
Can I like
tap. Yeah. What was the
would
question?
I ever be able to tell a dev to add in tags?
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. But they usually tag it with whatever they want, unless you could tell them to tag how you want it though.
Or do they like actually follow through, or is it like
They have to follow through. Like basically, what you do is you like say you're creating a script and you realize, wait, this stuff isn't tagged. You would create a story in Jira and you tell your product owner, hey, I can't complete my script unless this guy tags it, right?
right now there's a content description. Like, wouldn't it be better to like have like a regular ID type of tag?
Oh yeah, no. ID is the ideal scenario. Like that's what you want. Period.
Yeah, but like right now we're using a content description. Would I be able to tell the dev, hey, can you add in a ID that would just make things easier for me? Like, you know.
Not only should you definitely do that, that should be your main goal. Ideally, you want your entire app tagged, right? And a lot of times, if the sprint or the workload is too much, they might not have the time, because this only benefits you, right? It doesn't benefit the customer,
Yeah.
right? So obviously, they'll only do it if there's a lot of there's more time in their hands and they could accommodate it, because it seems simple to just tag stuff, but
Benefit for a dev for putting ID and stuff, like,
say again.
what's the benefit to a dev? For them
None.
to
There's no benefit to them. You just you give them the order because it makes your life easier, right? So obviously it's a hard question. It's not like it needs good justification. Like you could tell your product owner like, hey, the sprint is light this week and we need to catch up on our scripts. In order to do that and to make our lives a little easier, have the developer like assign these IDs to it. Really easier for us, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you got to take initiative, or else they'll never do it, because there's no benefit to them. It's just more work for them. So
Okay.
let's search, and yeah, perfect. We got it all. So obviously we're just interested in the first one. So we'll just say, let me pull that up. dot instance 0. Let me always verify, because you don't want you to run your script and find out it fails then. And the good thing about Appium is it lets you do it. So let's copy this. And let's say public void click store. All right. All right, and that we'd land on the main page. So there's one more thing though, and this I actually want you guys to do for yourself. So in this case, the problem with this is I could swipe this down. That's gonna be a little too tough because you know, the emulator is a thing. If you use a different emulator, this could be in a slightly different area, right? So I want you guys to do this for yourself, and this is, again, it's for homework. So I'll put the method here. Let's say public void tap outside menu, and this is the class you should use. And I want you to do the research yourself, and obviously use Teams, but I want you to do the research yourself in order to find out how to use it. So basically what you do is, if you look at here, Appium, and the problem with here is, so the behavior of the app is if I tap in this area, this grayed out area, this is going to come down, and I'll show you that right after. But let me refresh it for a second. So you could tap by coordinates, right? And Appium could do it by yourself. Like, look, I'll tap it right here. See? And it sends that action. But now you got to find out how to get your JavaScript to do it. In order to do that, you got to look up this touch action class. It's going to be a little involved in the research, but that's fine. Once you learn how to use it, you just get the coordinates. Like, you see this XY value right here? The touch action class, once you realize how to use it, you just pass in those values you see right here, whatever is over here. You pass it to touch action, right? And you'll know more about that when you research it. You pass that in, and then it'll tap it for you. And then after that, I just want you to add one item to the cart. And click on the cart, and that's it. That should be the end of your test case. And you should wrap that up in TestNG, right? So that's going to be your homework. But let's first see this in action. Everything we did so far. But any questions? Everything is recorded, so I know
no.
Today was a lot.
How can you, like, I don't remember how to set up TestNG. Do I have to go through the videos,
you'll have to. Go through the
quick?
videos, but all of this is how you created. Yeah.
Can you read? Because all the videos, I don't know which one to watch.
There's a TestNG one. Hang on. Let me show you.
I mean, did these videos have what do you call it? Descriptions?
Yeah. I tagged them all with descriptions. Let me show you. Right here, TestNG 1 and 2. So this would take you through the very basics. And obviously for Cucumber, you would transition to there. Ideally, go to Cucumber if you can, but set it up with TestNG. You could transition into Cucumber if you're set up for bonus points. Obviously, you will need Cucumber, so it's in your benefit. It's your best interest to, set it up. But for now, just focus on TestNG for this work. But before that, let's try to let it run and see if it works. Because it easily, could not. So let's see. And we'll go through each step and make sure and see if it fails. We'll know where it did it. All right, clicks that, clicks get started, clicks continuous guest, clicks that, Looks like it's gonna fail here at the click use current location button, and let's see how we can fix that. Let's give it some time. All right, so it failed, right? It's saying no such element exception. But let me what happens, and this time I'm going to run it again. I want you to pay attention. In order to bypass it, this is what I'll do. So it fails right over here, and that happens because this was not populated with 1600 amphitheater for like a brief second, and because of that, it kind of confused the script. It tried to query it right away. So this is how I'll fix it.
Try catch, like.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a sleep for 5 seconds. Yeah, 5 seconds. All right. And this time, pay attention to what happens. So the reason why it's still in the app is because it failed and it didn't even go to the quit step. All right, and I'll point to, you know, each of thing at it. It's click, 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 click. This part it passes that. Click use current location button. Oh wait, I think I put the sleep in here. All right, let me fix that. Yeah, I put the sleep here, but this was fine. So let me copy this and I'll put it. It wasn't in click use current location button. It was in click current location address. All right, now it should work. Click, click, click. This part should work. Except prompt. You see that locating right there, right? That's what confused it. So let's see if it works now after the sleep. There you go. Now it's click save, and then click store. And I think it was too fast, so let me put another sleep there.
You see how the first part you're calling the click method with an argument, and the second part
How come you put
you're
the
doing it differently.
after the click store?
You mean right here? Why did I put it here?
Before it quits, right?
Or
Wait, 1% at a time. So, Berm, what was your question?
You see how the first, like, lines 58 to 62, you have,
Yeah,
you're calling it with the click method,
yeah.
with an argument, but then after
Right.
that, 64.
Right.
like,
So,
you're
so
doing it
I did
differently.
that.
Which way
I
would
did
you
that
want
on
us to do it?
right. So I did that on purpose before, right? Because remember how we had our
Yeah.
regular click, we were using our accessibility IDs, right? But this was just to demonstrate one by one how we use the Android UI automator, right? Sometimes look at it here. Sometimes we use the class name, sometimes description, sometimes description contains. I just want to flesh all that out for you, and obviously for that you'd need a different, string every time. So I didn't have time to do all that here. So I put it in here. But obviously, when you guys do it, you should find a way to abstract it. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And Fa, your question, you said, why did I put it outside here?
I figured it out because it's quitting before clicking the store, so I get it now.
Right. I mean, no, it clicks the store. It just, it did do that. All right. So now that I put the sleep, let's see what happens. And I just put it here, Fa, just to show you. Regularly, you wouldn't have that sleep there. So now let's just see it through to the end.
You have it in a before method or after method?
Yeah, exactly. That's how you do it once you're actually doing it. I could probably lower that sleep a bit. All right, there you go. So after this, you guys would just have to find out how to, coordinate tap on a coordinate over here so it pulls that menu down. And then you just had to add one item to the cart, and then you're good. Any questions?
No,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. You just have to review it. But once you do, we're pretty much on the final stretch. There's not much else left. We're just gonna, for the remainder of the month and November, it's just gonna be straight review and getting you interview prepped.
A quick question. You put the tap outside function in landing page. Should I like put it in a page object?
I'm gonna put that up to you, but to me it doesn't matter as long as it doesn't confuse you. And you should, at this point, you should find a way to do it where it's less work for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, so this is the last thing we're learning?
No, there's gonna be one more thing,
Okay.
and then we're just gonna completely review everything, and basically, it's gonna get harder, like work-wise, because obviously now you guys are pretty much done with the tutorial stuff, right? Now it's just gonna see how far you could push yourself and get better at the interviews and stuff. All right,
okay.
good. All right, thanks, guys.
All right.